Castle of Gioia del Colle is the result of at last three construction works, one dating back to the Byzantine period, another to the Norman, and the last to the Swabian. In Italy, it was a castle shelter, that is, a place where the local population found shelter against the raids of enemy populations. This first nucleus was enlarged in the 12th century by Norman Riccardo Siniscalco, who transformed it into a noble residence. The final arrangement of the castle is due to Federico II of Swabia around 1230, when it is presented with a quadrangular courtyard, halls and rooms overlooking it, and is bordered by four corner towers. According to a legend, the emperor would have been closed in jealousy in this castle of his lover Biancalancia, mother of Manfredi, according to the legend born in Gioia del Colle. Another story tells that the same Biancalancia, dying, would ask Federico for the third time, a widower, to recognize their children, and he would marry her, making her empress for a few days. Another legend tells that the poor Bianca, closed in one of the towers because of the jealousy of the emperor, after Manfredi's birth she mutilated herself by cutting her breast and putting it with the child on a silver tray to be offered as a pledge of fidelity to the doubting monarch before committing suicide. After further changes of ownership, finally the castle was taken over by the city that has provided in several stages of the restoration. Furnace room and prisons. On the southern side of the courtyard is the hatches to the oven room, from which you go down to a small basement used in ancient times as a prison, on a wall of which are carved two round nests, which according to legend reproduce the breasts of Biancalancia, lover of Federico II of Swabia. Throne room and fireplace room. The Sala del Trono leads to the Sala del Camino, so called because of the presence of a Renaissance fireplace. Museum. The National Archaeological Museum of Gioia del Colle welcomes in its rooms the finds from the excavation of the ancient village of Monte San Noce. These are large geometrically decorated stones, jugs, cantaroi decorated with swastika motifs and hanging semicircles, but also Attic, Ionic, and Corinthian vases, which attest to the presence of exchanges and trade between the indigenous Birchets populations and the Greek people.
Under this arch, the inhabitants of the area, around the 17th century, had the icon of the Madonna of Constantinople painted in a niche, which they venerated with particular devotion. For these particular circumstance, the arch takes the name of the Madonna of Constantinople. The image, ruined by time, was recently repainted and placed in the niche to replace the original fresco. The external part of the arch is characterized by a lowered barrel, which starts from approximately 1.70 m from street level, while the internal part rests on a stone base located at approximately 50 cm from the ground. On this side, the terminal arch with a slightly pointed arch in stone for about 1 meter and in tuff for the remaining part. On the right side, near the internal arch, the upper part of valuable pointed arch portal, which is currently walled up, is visible. Also in the same site are visible 4 stone blocks with a central hole set in the wall, once used to stop the bridles of horses. In the center of the courtyard there is still a well from the 16th century. The name, which recalls the Madonna of the same name, and therefore the Byzantine religious influence, confirms the origins of our municipality and the period of Byzantine domination in Gioia del Colle. In the courtyard you can admire a 17th century balcony with carved columns supported by showy cats, whose size makes you think of the home of a noble family who once lived there. It is an arch, the vault of which is supported by beams that support a higher construction. It is made up of 3 arches that follow one another, starting from Via Spada, the first arch in the round, while the other 2 are in the form of a lowered barrel. In the first arch there are 3 edicules, one of which contains the image of San Rocco. The structure is made of local tuff. It is a simple arch, which serves as a place of passage from one alley to another. In fact, it does not lead to a courtyard, but to a winding road that leads to Via Carlo III di Borbone. It is located in an area that during the autumn period was frequented by drinkers located in the cellars, once present in large numbers in the surrounding area, which were characterized by the presence of fasces of olive branches and corners of the neighboring houses on the access doors to the cellars themselves.
It probably takes this name from the ancient Gioia family of the same name, who lived in the 17th century, now extinct, who must have had their home in the Arco courtyard. In fact, inside the courtyard there are the remains of a 17th century stately building, which probably should be the reconstruction of a pre-existing building, of which neither the first owners, now the inhabitants, are known. It is a stone arch pointed, which has edges worked in a diamond point shape. It has the function of closing the internal courtyard, which has 4 staircases to access as many homes.
The Nardulli Arch dates back to the 15th century, probably belonging to the family of the same name who lived in that place in that century, and surmounted by the copy of the 18th century panel now kept in the municipality. It leads into a medieval court, once the seat of the constable, the commander of the militias in the Swabian age. It seems that it was built by the constable of Gioia. This arch, due to its radial sagittal structure, resembles an entrance of the castle more than the others, and gives the idea of a construction for the purpose of defense of the environments present inside. In the upper part of the said arch, in fact, there was a local tower with the common building which looked east towards the castle. Flanked to the arch in the internal part there is another wall arch, but pronounced in Carparo tuff, supported on one side by a large cat. After passing the courtyard and leaving the entrance arch behind you, you come across another arch that leads onto Via Gelso. It's composed of 3 series of parallel arches, which created a sort of corridor portico, on which you can see the beams that support 2 rooms of an upper house. This building was certainly owned by a noble family, as evidenced by the presence of an indecipherable heraldic figure placed at the entrance of the house.
Upon her death in 1829, the public elementary school teacher Angela Maria Paradiso donated her assets and her home for the foundation of a civic hospital, which takes its name Paradiso from her, a name it still retains today. The hospital was built by adapting her home, located between Via Fontana, Corso Vittorio Emanuele, and the square that bears her name, and had a capacity of 10 beds. When the small hospital, being insufficient for the needs of the population of Gioia, was closed to be transferred to the larger rooms of the convent of Sant'Antonio or of the Reformed Franciscans, the complex was named after the generous benefactress Paradiso. It is a particular arch because it is actually made up of 2 arches. One, which overlooks Corso Vittorio Emanuele, has a lowered barrel and is long enough to support a private house, and the other, which opens onto Via Principe Amedeo, linked together by a square internal courtyard. This last arch has a lowered and lunette barrel shape, in which a new stand is included. with the image of the Madonna. Above the two arches there are some inhabited buildings. Inside the courtyard you can admire an ancient building located on the first floor, reachable by a staircase which has a characteristic semi-covered loggia, with 3 arches supported by 4 columns, which serves as an entrance portico, entrance to the ancient house.
The Arch of San Nicola is located in the ancient district of the same name, so called because Gioia was part of the diocese of San Nicola di Bari, and in the 7th and subsequent centuries a representation of the Basilica of Bari resided in our municipality. The arch leads into a small courtyard in which there was an oven owned by the municipality, called San Nicola, which used it to bake the bread needed by the population who lived in that old Gioia village. In the courtyard there are 3 houses, which are accessed via 2 staircases, and some rooms which are at street level. It's unique among all others due to its structure. It's flanked by a staircase that leads above the arch, which is used as a bridge and a passageway to access a house. It's built of tuff and birds writing Arco San Nicola at the top.